What happens when two of entertainment's sharpest minds collide live on television, and the conversation suddenly takes a turn no one saw coming? Tonight, we're breaking down the fiery exchange between Danny DeVito and Stephen Colbert that went from playful banter to a shocking confrontation that left the studio audience gasping and the crew scrambling behind the scenes. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below, because this one's going to leave you wondering who was really in the right. It started like any other Tuesday night on The Late Show. Stephen Colbert, all smiles behind his desk, welcomed his guest with open arms. When Danny DeVito walked out, the crowd erupted. Everyone loves Danny. He's the kind of guy who can make you laugh just by showing up. The applause stretched on as he waved to the crowd, and the two shared a warm embrace before sitting down. Things kicked off smoothly. Danny was there to promote his new dark comedy about a retired mobster trying to reconnect with his estranged daughter. Standard talk show fare. They joked about the movie, traded stories, and the audience laughed in all the right places. Danny even mentioned he'd gained 20 pounds for the role. Pasta every day for 3 months, he said. Stephen laughed, joking he wished he had that excuse, and Danny shot back with a quip about Stephen's suit looking a little too comfortable these days. The crowd loved it. Everything seemed perfect. Until it wasn't. Stephen shifted gears. He brought up a comment Danny had made in a recent interview, something about how comedy has changed, and how modern audiences don't appreciate the same kind of humor anymore. At first, it seemed like a harmless topic, but as Danny started to respond, something in his demeanor changed. His smile faded. "Yeah," he said, "I meant it." Danny began explaining how comedy used to take risks, how comics pushed boundaries and audiences pushed back. "Now," he said, "everyone's too afraid of saying the wrong thing. Comedy's lost its edge." Stephen nodded carefully, then asked, "But don't you think there's value in being more thoughtful? In recognizing that words have impact?" The audience gave a light round of applause, clearly leaning toward Stephen. Danny leaned back, arms crossed. "That's the problem," he said. "Everyone wants to be thoughtful. Everyone wants to be careful. And in the process, we've turned comedy into something sanitized and safe." He said when he started out, no one worried about being thoughtful. They worried about being funny. If someone got offended, that was part of the deal. The room went quiet. Stephen's smile tightened. "With all due respect," he said, "maybe that old deal wasn't working for everyone. Maybe some people were the punchline for too long, and they're just asking not to be anymore." The audience clapped again, louder this time. Danny leaned forward. "I'm not talking about punching down," he said. "I'm talking about taking risks, trusting audiences to understand context and nuance, treating them like adults, not children who need protection." Stephen countered. "It's not about protection. It's about responsibility. When you have a platform, your words matter." "Comedy doesn't exist in a vacuum." The crowd roared with approval. Danny shook his head. "Responsibility sounds noble," he said, "but what it really means is censorship. Once you let that dictate your art, it's not art anymore, it's propaganda." Gasps rippled through the studio. Stephen's tone hardened. "That's a hell of a thing to say. Calling thoughtful comedy propaganda isn't just wrong, it's dangerous." Danny didn't flinch. "You're proving my point," he said. "We can't even talk about this without someone getting defensive. Comedy's supposed to make people uncomfortable. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. If everyone's comfortable, you're not doing your job." The tension was electric. The audience didn't know whether to clap, laugh, or stay silent. What began as a lighthearted chat had turned into one of The Late Show's most talked-about moments, raising a question that still has fans divided. Was Danny defending comedy or just refusing to evolve with it? Stephen shot back. "Making people uncomfortable," he said, "and making people feel dehumanized are two very different things." He leaned forward. "You can hide behind artistic freedom all you want, but if your comedy makes someone feel less than human, you didn't push boundaries, you failed. You didn't challenge anyone. You just hurt people." The studio went silent. This wasn't banter anymore. This wasn't two entertainers trading barbs. Something deeper had broken through. Danny stared at Stephen for a long moment before speaking. His voice was quieter now, but sharper, cutting through the stillness. "It's interesting you use the word failed," he said. "Because from where I'm sitting, the real failure is pretending comedy's job is to make everyone feel good. Comedy's job is to tell the truth, and the truth isn't always comfortable." Stephen didn't hesitate. "The truth according to who, though?" he asked. "Your truth might not be someone else's truth, acting like there's only one version of it. That's the kind of thinking that got us into this mess in the first place," he went on. "Art can tell the truth and still be compassionate. It can push boundaries and be kind." Danny laughed, but it wasn't a warm laugh. It was sharp, dismissive. "Kindness and comedy," he said, "don't mix. You can't be kind and funny at the same time. Comedy comes from tension, from conflict, from pointing out the absurd. What you're describing isn't comedy. It's everybody agreeing with each other and calling it progress." Stephen's jaw tightened. "That's not what I'm saying, and you know it," he said. "There's a difference between creating tension and being cruel just to get a laugh. Some of the funniest people I know are also the kindest. They understand that comedy doesn't require a victim." Danny cut him off. "Every joke has a victim," he said. "Whether you like it or not. Someone's always the butt of it. A politician, a celebrity, an idea, a behavior. That's structure. Pretending otherwise is just lying to yourself so you can feel better about what you do." Stephen's tone hardened. "No," he said. "That's lazy thinking. Satire punches up at power, not down at people who are already struggling. There's a difference between mocking corruption and mocking someone's identity. If you can't see that, maybe you haven't been paying attention to how the world's changed." Danny's face reddened. "Oh, I've been paying attention," he said. "I've been watching comedy die a slow death while everyone pats themselves on the back for being so enlightened." He leaned in. "You sit behind that desk every night making the safest jokes possible. Trump joke, Republican joke, audience applause, repeat. You call that bravery? At least when I tell a joke, there's risk. At least people don't know what's coming." The room froze. Even the cameramen seemed unsure whether to keep rolling or brace for what was next. Stephen exhaled slowly, visibly trying to compose himself. "Danny," he said, "I respect your career. I respect what you've done. But being offensive for the sake of it isn't authenticity. It's laziness. Shock value isn't the same as substance." Danny leaned forward, gripping the arms of his chair. "You want to talk substance?" he said. "Let's talk substance. Your show is the same thing every night. Safe, predictable, applause on cue. That's not comedy, Stephen. That's confirmation bias with a punchline." Stephen's face flushed red now. "That's completely unfair, and you know it," he snapped. "Yes, I talk about politics because politics matters. Because there are real stakes in what's happening. Making fun of powerful people who are hurting others isn't lazy, it's accountability." Danny shook his head. "Accountability, responsibility, thoughtfulness," he smirked. "You've got all the buzzwords down. But at the end of the day, you're not challenging anyone. You're preaching to the choir. Real comedy makes everyone uncomfortable, even the people who agree with you." Stephen's voice rose slightly. "You're romanticizing discomfort like it's inherently valuable, and it's not." The tension was thick enough to cut. Neither man moved. Neither smiled. And somewhere off camera, a producer signaled to cut to commercial. Too late. This moment was already live. Stephen took a breath, his tone measured but firm. "Making people uncomfortable just for the sake of it," he said, "is pointless. It has to mean something, some larger truth or insight. Otherwise it's just noise," Danny scoffed. "There he goes again with the rules. Comedy has to mean something. Comedy has to serve something." He shook his head. "That's the problem right there. Comedy doesn't have to do anything except be funny. The moment you start attaching conditions, you kill it." Stephen leaned forward. "No," he said quietly. "You elevate it. Comedy without purpose is just meanness, and there's nothing interesting about meanness. You can call it edge or authenticity, but if it's just making people feel bad for no reason, it's worthless." Danny suddenly pushed back his chair and stood up. The audience gasped. Stephen blinked, startled. "I didn't come here to be lectured," Danny snapped. "Not by someone who's forgotten what comedy even is. You've turned into the kind of person comedians used to make fun of, so obsessed with being right, you've forgotten how to be funny." Stephen rose too, planting his hands on his desk. If being funny means not caring who you hurt, then maybe you're the one who's forgotten something, he said. Comedy's always been about more than laughs. It's about connection, about finding light in dark places. Your version of comedy, Danny, it just sounds lonely. That word hit like a punch. Lonely. Something flickered across Danny's face. Hurt, maybe, but he masked it fast. At least lonely is honest, he said. Your version of comedy? That's a popularity contest. Making sure everyone likes you. Making sure you never say anything that might cost you a fan. That's not art, Stephen. That's marketing, Stephen's reply came fast. Caring about your impact isn't marketing. It's being human. You can hide behind that tough guy, old-school comedian act all you want, but words matter. Actions matter. Pretending they don't? That's cowardice hiding behind nostalgia. Danny's voice dropped low, sharp as glass. Cowardice, he said. You think that's what this is? It takes a hell of a lot more courage to say something half the room will hate than it does to say what everyone will clap for. You wouldn't know courage if it hit you in the face. You've spent years building a safe little echo chamber where everyone agrees with you. Stephen's jaw tightened. That's rich, he said. Coming from the guy who's been complaining for 20 minutes that comedy's too soft, while throwing a tantrum on live television because someone disagreed with him. The crowd gasped. Half shock, half thrill, Stephen pressed on. If you're so tough, Danny, so edgy, why are you so offended by a simple conversation about being thoughtful? Danny pointed a finger at him. I'm not offended, he said, voice rising. I'm disappointed. I expected better from you. I thought you understood what comedy was supposed to be, but you've drunk the Kool-Aid like everyone else. It's a shame, really. You used to be funny. Stephen's voice went cold. I still am, he said. At least to people who aren't stuck in the past. Maybe your problem isn't with modern comedy. Maybe it's that the world's moved on and you haven't. Audiences have evolved, Danny. Comedy's evolved. Danny glared at him. There it is, he said. That's what this is really about. You think I'm irrelevant. You sit there in your suit, with your safe jokes and your obedient audience, thinking you've got it all figured out. But you're just a puppet, saying what the network tells you to say. Stephen's eyes widened. That's absurd and insulting. Nobody tells me what to say. Nobody controls my content? Danny smirked. You keep telling yourself that, Stephen shot back. You're grasping at straws because you know you're losing this argument. Attacking my integrity doesn't make your point any more valid. Danny laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Losing? He said. This isn't a debate club, Stephen. This is supposed to be entertainment. But you're so obsessed with being right that you've forgotten how to have a real conversation. Everything with you has to be a moral crusade. Winning or losing, never just talking like human beings. Stephen's expression hardened. We stopped having a conversation, he said, the moment you started insulting everything I stand for. You came on my show and used it as a platform to tear down what I've spent my career building. If you wanted a real discussion, you had every chance, without being disrespectful. Danny shook his head. Disrespectful, that's the magic word now, huh? Everyone's so scared of being disrespectful that no one can say anything real anymore. He pointed toward the audience. You want respect, Stephen? You've got to give it. The moment I said something you didn't like, you turned it into a character assassination. Stephen countered. No, I turned it into a discussion about values. You just didn't like being challenged. You're so used to everyone laughing and agreeing with you that the second someone pushes back, you act like you're being attacked. That's not strength. That's fragility. Danny's voice rose, sharp and furious. Fragility? Coming from the guy who needs his audience to agree with him every night or he falls apart? You can't handle anyone thinking differently, so you label them outdated, problematic, whatever makes you feel superior. The crowd was dead silent now. The tension on set was electric. 2 men, 2 philosophies, and a live audience watching the collapse of what was supposed to be late-night entertainment. He said, At least Danny doesn't need constant validation from a room full of strangers. Stephen shot back. This whole thing started because Danny couldn't handle being questioned about his views on comedy. He said Danny was the one who turned a simple discussion into a personal attack. If anyone here needs validation, he said, it's clearly Danny. Otherwise, why would he be so upset that someone disagreed with him? Danny said he wasn't upset about disagreement. He was upset because he was watching comedy die in real time and nobody seemed to care. "People like Stephen are killing it with kindness," he said, "smothering it with good intentions until there's nothing left but safe, approved content that challenges no one and means nothing." He leaned forward. "When comedy's dead, Stephen's going to look back and realize he helped bury it," Stephen replied calmly. "Comedy's not dying. It's changing. And you're mad because you're not changing with it." He said every generation thinks the next is ruining everything. But the world keeps turning. "Comedy will survive just fine," he added, "without your permission or approval." Danny said it wasn't about permission. It was about the art form itself. "Comedy used to mean something," he said. "It was dangerous, unpredictable, alive. Now it's sanitized, market-tested, stripped of everything that gave it power." "You're a symptom of that disease, Stephen, not the cure." Stephen's tone sharpened. "Dangerous doesn't automatically mean good. Unpredictable doesn't mean valuable." He said Danny was clinging to the past, mistaking nostalgia for wisdom. "Some things deserve to change," he said. "Some boundaries needed to be redrawn. Refusing to accept that isn't brave. It's stubborn." Danny smirked. "Stubborn? Sure. I'll take stubborn over spineless any day." He said Stephen bent whichever way the wind blew, always adjusting his content to match what was acceptable that week. "That's not comedy," he said. "That's customer service." Stephen's hands were trembling now. "I don't adjust based on what's acceptable," he said. "I adjust based on what's right. There's a difference between following trends and having principles. You can mock those principles all you want, but at least I have them." Danny scoffed. "Principles? Is that what we're calling it now? Your principles always seem to line up perfectly with whatever your audience wants to hear. Real principles cost you something. They make you unpopular. They make people uncomfortable. You've never been at odds with anyone except people who already hated you," Stephen shot back. "That's because my principles are consistent, unlike yours. Saying something shocking just to get a reaction isn't a principle. It's ego." He said having principles meant standing for something, while Danny only stood for himself. The audience was silent now, shifting uneasily. You could almost feel the producers panicking behind the cameras, debating whether to cut to commercial or let the tension play out. Danny broke the silence. "Ego? That's what you think this is?" he said, his voice tight. "It's about integrity, about not selling out everything you once believed just to keep your job. You're so afraid of losing your spot, your audience, your relevance, that you'll say anything to keep them happy." Stephen's reply was cold. "I'm not afraid of losing anything. I'm afraid of becoming someone like you. So bitter about the world changing that you attack everyone who's adapted." He leaned forward. "You're not protecting comedy, Danny. You're protecting your worldview, and those are two very different things." Danny stepped closer to the desk. "Adapted," he said. "That's a generous word. Surrendered is more like it. You surrendered your edge, your voice, your ability to surprise anyone, all for safety and approval. Maybe that works for you, Stephen, but don't call it comedy." Stephen met his glare. "I haven't surrendered anything. I've evolved. Evolution means letting go of what doesn't work anymore, the stuff that hurts more than it helps." He paused. "You're clinging to a version of comedy that's extinct for a reason, and no amount of shouting about it will bring it back." Danny said, "Extinct. There's that word again." He shook his head. "Stephen keeps using words like that to make it sound inevitable, like there's no choice in any of this." "But there is a choice, and Stephen chose wrong. He chose comfort over truth, safety over risk, popularity over substance." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "Those choices have consequences, and one of them is this. Stephen's show doesn't matter anymore." Stephen's face went pale, then flushed red. "My show doesn't matter?" he said, his voice tight. "Millions of people watch every night. Millions engage, share, and talk about it." He leaned forward. "Just because you don't like what I do doesn't mean it doesn't matter." Danny didn't flinch. "Numbers aren't the same as impact," he said. "Sure, people watch. But what are they getting from it? What are they learning? What's being challenged?" He looked directly at Stephen. "Nothing. Because you're not trying to change minds. You're trying to reassure them. That might be successful, but it's not meaningful. Stephen said it was meaningful to the people who watch, to those who feel seen, heard, and represented. Your idea of meaningful, he said, seems to be whatever makes you feel something. That's not depth, Danny. That's ego. Comedy doesn't revolve around your approval. Danny shot back. No, it revolves around truth. And you wouldn't recognize truth if it walked up and shook your hand. Your version of truth is whatever's trending, whatever's popular enough to keep the machine running. Real truth is uncomfortable. It's messy. It doesn't fit neatly into a 7-minute segment between commercials. Stephen's jaw tightened. Your obsession with discomfort is telling, he said. You act like if something doesn't hurt, it isn't real. That's a twisted way to look at the world. No wonder you're always so angry. I'm not angry all the time, Danny said, his voice low but burning. I'm angry now because I'm talking to someone who gave up. You gave up on comedy being anything more than a popularity contest, and now you're pretending that was noble. There's nothing noble about taking the easy path and calling it integrity. Stephen leaned in. The easy path, he said, would have been to keep making the same jokes you do. To ignore the world changing. To never question whether you're helping or hurting anyone. The hard path is listening, learning, evolving, and still being funny. You chose easy, Danny, and called it brave. Danny shook his head slowly. We're never going to agree on this, he said. You're too far gone, too committed to this new version of comedy that isn't comedy at all. Still, it's been educational. Seeing how far someone can fall and still think they're flying. Stephen let out a humorless laugh. Funny, he said. I was just thinking the same thing. It's been eye-opening watching someone so gifted waste it all on bitterness and resentment. You could have come here, talked about your work, your film, connected with people. Instead, you burned bridges and made everyone uncomfortable, for no reason. So what do you think really caused this explosion? Was it truly about comedy and principles? Or something deeper between the two of them? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because you can bet we'll be watching to see if either of them speaks out again.